Eva than your name in English? It
Yes,
says,
that's my identity to the public.
okay,
In community, I'm Heva.
great.
All right, so looks like we've got Kent is here and Rami. So Rachel, would you be willing to do the honors of introducing Amalia? And then I think what we'll do is we'll, since everyone has their name except for Fred. Fred is our person on the phone. So Fred, unfortunately, Amalia sent me some materials, but I just didn't have the wherewithal to send them on to you, but I will send on to you, first of all, the materials that Amalia provided to me, and then I will also forward Donna the link to the YouTube that we make today so that you can see the videos that Amalia shows in the course of the—
Did you send material to anyone else?
I sent it to nobody because it's going to be on the screen. Yeah.
Then I don't feel bad that I didn't get it.
You don't have to feel bad at all about not getting it. And look at this apple. Just look, at least on this screen, it looks amazing. I don't know.
It looks like a Magritte.
Yeah, it does. It's very. I'm sorry to obscure it. Look at that. All right. So Rachel, please take it away. Amalia, just so everyone knows that Rachel and Amalia are classmates, and they are just so excited that we're soon going to have two more rabbis.
You have to sit down and talk.
Yes. So now I'm going to shut up. Okay, Rachel, thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's really nice to see you. I'm so glad that everyone could join us this afternoon. And thank you for letting us interrupt, quote unquote, or add to, I will say, your regular scheduled programming of learning. And it is my absolute pleasure to introduce my classmate and dear friend, soon to be rabbi, and Mayim Chaim staff person to come today and teach us about mikveh and how we can think about it, how we can re-envision it, and how we can potentially integrate it into our own lives. So without further ado, I pass you along to Amalia and just remind folks to mute so that the chaos is limited. Thank you so much.
Mute. Thank you, Rachel. And could you give me host privileges as well? That would be, I think, helpful for this. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with all of you. As Rachel said, I'm Amalia, really excited to be here. I'm the director of partnerships and programs at Mayim Chaim. And my job is to teach about mikveh. And one of those things that I get to do that I love most in the world is teaching people about mikveh. So I'm very, very lucky. I'm going to give you a quick outline of what today is going to look like together. So we are going to spend most of our time looking at my screen, which I'm going to share. That means I won't necessarily be able to hear or see all of you, which is quite tragic and my least favorite part of this. So Rachel, if it's okay with you, I'm going to task you, if somebody has a question and they're raising their hand, you are tasked with unmuting and interrupting me. And so if you have a question and I'm not seeing it in the chat, or I'm not seeing that you're raising your hand, just keep your hand up and Rachel will see it and she will then unmute and let me know so I can hear it, because your voices are going to be a part of this as well. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Let's hope this part works. Oh, too big. All righty. Stop share. That was the wrong way. Great. Take two, everybody. I love Zoom. All right, here we go. Great. Boom. Here we go. Yesterday, I taught a program on Zoom and had to do the same exact reconfiguring of my screen for some reason. All right. Are we all here? Are we all seeing as much as we can see? Head nods. Great. Love it. I'm going to readjust for a moment. Okay. Welcome to Introduction to Mikveh with Mayim Chaim. I have an agenda for all of us. Here's what we're going to do in the next hour and some minutes. We are going to learn about the biblical context for mikveh construction. We're going to actually see Mayim Chaim's mikveh. We're going to take a tour without leaving our seats, and we're going to see how mikveh is built and used. We're also going to learn about why Jews and those becoming Jewish have been immersing for thousands of years. So now, remember how I said this is going to involve your voices as well? Well, we're going to start doing that right now. Let's do a little bit of information gathering. I'm going to invite you either to raise your hand or put into the chat box, what have you heard? If you know something about Mikveh, what is it? What image, if you have a picture in your mind, what is that image? This is not about right or wrong answers. This is just information gathering. Kent.
I was there for my conversion probably a decade ago. So that was my introduction and the only time I've ever done the official mikveh, and it's gorgeous out there. It's wonderful. I have other things I want to ask, but I think I'll wait till later in the program and see if you address it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Kent. So Kent just gave us a ton of valuable information, which is it might be used for conversions. It's in a building. So great, fantastic. A Kodesh practice. Eva, do you want to unmute and share anything about that?
Yeah, I have, yeah. It's what some people do before Shabbat to prepare for Shabbat. It's a time, it's a place or an activity or a practice for women to do before, after they've finished with their menses, and before they can continue conjugal relations with their husband. It's a practice for conversion. It's a practice before you do any life important, like before getting married.
Great. So what I'm hearing is it's about transitions. It's about these moments of transitions in our lives. And I'm actually going to translate Kodesh, which is often translated as sacred, as it's a transition practice. So it's a holy practice. It's a sacred practice to allow us to access transitions. Fantastic, Eva. Love it. And Mayim says that Mayim has heard about Mayim Chaim and wanted to go, and it looks beautiful. Thank you so much. This photo in front of us is actually a photo of Mayim Chaim's mikveh. So we have an image right here if you don't have an image in your mind. So we've done a lot of really great information gathering. This group is knowledgeable. And if you feel like you don't know anything, that's okay. That's why we're here. So we're starting with some information that it has to do with transitions, might be how someone becomes a Jewish person, and we'll learn a lot more as well. So now that we've done a little fact finding, what do you want to know? This is when we get to ask all of the questions that we might have about mikveh. And just because you don't ask it now does not mean you can't ask it later. But Kent.
Hi. So it's not as easy for me to get to where you are as it used to be, but I'm next to the ocean and I often swim in ponds and rivers. So whenever I'm in a body of water, I immerse myself and stay under for as long as I can and just listen and look at the light and all that. But I wondered, are any of those bodies of water acceptable as a real mikveh, or do you actually have to go to an inside pool with an outside water source?
Fantastic question. So I'm hearing you ask, are oceans, rivers, and lakes a kosher mikveh, a mikveh fit for ritual use? We're going to talk about that. Other questions? Mayim, is that a hand? I welcome you to unmute.
Thank you. So I know about the practice of doing it after one's period and before returning to relations with the husband. But I think most of us here are past that time. So what do older women do?
Amazing. I'm actually going to expand that, Mayim, for a moment. Okay. How might older people use the mikveh? Amazing question. We can even make that bigger. How might somebody use this mikveh throughout their life? Fantastic.
Amalia, I saw that Ellen Soro had her hand up.
Ellen, please.
I think you can hear me now.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. I have friends who have their own well in upstate New York, and they use the water from that as their own mikveh.
That's incredible. That's fascinating. And we're going to get to in a moment a little bit more about mikveh, but I would love to think about that of your friends well when we're talking about the source of mikveh. That's fascinating.
Yeah, they're with the synagogue there. So if you wanted to be in touch with them, I can help you.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Ellen. That's amazing. I love learning about mikveh and other places. And I see here, who's on the iPad? I just want to make sure I have a name.
If you go to the
it's Mallory and Romney on the iPad.
Great. So Mallory and Romney have the question of do men play a role in mikveh practices? Great question. Where do men fit in? We'll talk about that. And anyone else have a question? Just because I'm about to move on does not mean that we can't ask questions later. I invite you and encourage you to ask questions throughout this. Just going to scroll through and look for hands. And I also want to reflect that someone told a story last week of Hasidic men going on Sabbath. We'll talk about that too. Amazing. So we actually know quite a bit. We have lots of questions. And I think this is a good time to segue into what is it? No one has yet asked the question of what is mikveh? I keep saying this word. I haven't defined it. So if this entire time you've been sitting here wondering, what is that word Amalia is saying? You're not alone. We have a basic definition for a reason. Can I have somebody unmute, please, and read our basic definition of mikveh?
I'll read it.
Oh,
I think I saw Sandra. Did you?
Yes.
Great. Go ahead, Sandra.
All I see is an ocean and a mikveh.
Okay. Does anyone see the words on the screen who wants to unmute and
A mikveh is a gathering of water used for ritual immersion by Jews and those becoming Jewish at the moment of conversion.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sandra. And as Sandra said, there seem to be two different images. Perhaps they're both mikveh. That's plural of mikveh. So when I say the word mikveh, this is what I'm saying. A ritual immersion, meaning immersion done a similar way or the same way each time by Jews and those who are becoming Jewish. They come when they're about to convert. And mikveh is a full body ritual immersion. So when I say full body, I mean we go into the water the way we were born, which is to say wearing nothing at all. So nothing will come between us and the water. We're going to talk more about that. All right, so we know what mikveh is. Great, check. But where does it come from? What's the source? Pun intended. Where do we find the understanding, the knowledge of mikveh? Mallory, oh no, sorry. I thought you unmuted if you had a question. So where we get the source is the Bible, specifically Leviticus 11:36. When we talk about mikveh being ancient, it really is. This is our first source of mikveh. This is the wellspring. I'm just going to keep saying water puns. So can I have somebody unmute, please, and read in whatever language is comfiest for them? You'll see on the screen there's Hebrew, there's English, and there's transliteration. So whatever is most comfortable for you to read in is what I want you to read in. Can somebody please unmute and read our source?
I can read it in English.
Great, thank you so much, Sandra.
Oh, it's Mallory.
Oh, Mallory, I'm so sorry.
That's all right. We're set up outside. Anyway,
all right. Yes, please go ahead, Mallory.
Only a spring or a pit in which waters gather will be ritually pure.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mallory. I'm going to read the Hebrew. Ach ma'ayan uvor mikveh mayim yihiyeh tahor. This source is where everything that we understand about mikveh comes from. So this is not a very long verse, only a couple of words. So this verse is the model for the mikveh at Mayim Chayim. But how do we get there? I don't see any building instructions here, do you? So as Rachel said earlier, we are both rabbinical students. And I'm going to invite each one of you into the Beit Midrash, the house of study, with us right now. One of the things that rabbis, both ancient and modern, have been doing for the past 2,000 years is looking at verses in the Bible and saying every single word here matters. So I'm going to ask each of you, what words do you notice? What words stick out to you here? And you literally cannot go wrong because every word here matters. So I'm going to invite you to put in the chat a word that you notice. And please feel free to write it in English.
And if the chat function isn't something that folks are comfortable with,
Please unmute.
feel free to just unmute and share the word, or raise your hand and we can call on people. So it's whichever is easier.
Yes, absolutely. Lori?
Well, I was interested, struck by the word pit.
Pit. Very nice.
So I'm wondering, would a quarry qualify as a mikveh?
A great question. We're going to get to that. Amazing. You're already like 15 steps ahead. It's awesome. So we're going to hold that. I'm going to write it down so I don't forget.
Ellen Khan, I see that your hand is up. Do you go ahead and unmute and share the word that sticks out to you?
Can you hear me?
Yep, we got this.
Amayim means waters.
Beautiful. Yes. So pointing out that it has to be water. Yes. Fantastic. I'm looking in the chat for a moment. We're seeing pit, gathered water, pure. Mallory and Romney, amazing. I'm going to expand that to ritual purity, the word tahor. Amazing. Anything else? Anyone else want to chime in with the word that they notice here?
I think, Kent, did you have your hand up again?
Oh.
No.
I wrote in the chat.
Great. Yes, I see. Thank you. So I'm now going to take us word by word through this, and we're going to expand on each word. So only these types of water. What types of water, you ask? Ma'ayan, a spring, natural moving water. All right. I want to come back to one of the very first questions we had when we were thinking about what we wanted to know. According to the verse, what we know so far, are oceans, rivers, and lakes natural moving water? So according to the verse, oceans, rivers, and lakes are all mikvaot. So to answer Kent's question of, can I use the ocean as a mikvah? Absolutely. And people have been using oceans, rivers, and lakes for thousands of years as mikvaot because they are natural moving waters. They're a ma'ayan. On the opposite end of a ma'ayan is a bore, a pit. So something dug into the ground. We're going to come back to the question about a quarry, Lori. Great question. And we're not quite there yet to be able to answer it. Mikveh. Mikveh literally means a gathering. And the waters of the pit, the waters of the bore have to gather and remain still, unlike an ocean, which is constantly moving. However, you could not use a river that's been dammed. So if the water isn't able to move unfettered, it's not a kosher mikvah, mikvah fit for ritual use. Mayim, water, so water and nothing else. It can't be so muddy that it's almost mud and not water. It really has to look like water. Although if you had a mikvah filled with vodka, which looks like water, that also would not be a kosher mikvah because it has to be water. And when I teach this to fifth graders, I ask them, can I have a mikvah filled with chocolate milk? Would that be a kosher mikvah? What do we think? I'm seeing some head shakes. No. True. It would not be a kosher mikvah. It would not be a mikvah fit for ritual use. Although I always invite them, if they do it, to please let me know how it went. Yeah, shall be, both of these, the ma'ayan and the bore, the spring and the pit, shall be tahor, or pure, ritually pure. Both the mikvah itself is ritually pure or ritually ready, and what comes out of it. So I'm going to stop screen sharing for the moment. And I'm going to pause and ask, are there any questions before I move to our next piece? Helen.
Sorry, but I was writing those words down and I want to see it again. I didn't
Oh,
get to write it all down.
Oh, of course, Mayim. I'll reshare my screen. And Helen, I see that you had a question. Please share.
Yes. I wondered, are you alone when you are going into the water?
Fantastic question. I'm going to ask you to hold that until we get to how does immersion work. So great question. I'm going to write it down also. So if we don't answer it, which I think we will, but want to make sure that I don't forget it. Anyone else? And Mayim, can you let me know when I can take this down?
Okay, thank you.
I have another question.
Please, yes.
So if it must look and feel like water and nothing else, then how quite does an ocean qualify when there's all kinds of stuff in the ocean?
Sure.
Crabs and fish and seaweed and plastic and oceans can be pretty yucky.
Yes.
At least close to shore.
Yes, they can. But
jellyfish.
It still looks and feels like water. You know, you're in an ocean.
All right.
Like, you know, versus a very muddy stream that's more mud than water when you can't really tell, that might not be considered a kosher mikveh, actually. Or there is a really, this is a side tangent, but I love talking about mikveh, so I'm going to indulge myself. There's a really fascinating Mishnah, which is rabbinic writings from 2,000 years ago. And the Mishnah talks about somebody pouring wine into the mikveh. And what happens if the color changes? That isn't considered a kosher mikveh anymore. Even though it might feel like water, it doesn't, water's not red. Or it isn't usually. So that's a fascinating conversation that the rabbis thought about 2,000 years ago. So Laura, you're right there with them. I love it. All right, I'm gonna take us now to thinking about architecture. So we've looked at the verse, we understand the source of mikveh. Now the question is, how do we make this tangible? How do we make it physical? So I'm going to introduce you to Lisa Negelev, who is our former Associate Director of Education. And in a video that I'm about to show, she's going to explain Mayim Chaim's mikveh construction. Basically, how we take Leviticus 11:36 and turn it into a physical building. Everyone ready? Great. All right, I'm gonna mute everyone. So I'm gonna remain unmuted for this. But I want to minimize feedback as much as possible while the video is playing. All righty. Share screen. Share. Move that here. That's better. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? Awesome. Seeing some head nods. All right. Let's listen in on how Mayim Chaim's mikveh construction works.
I'm here to talk about the halachic Jewish legal design of Mayim Chaim's mikveh. Our model, among the many that exist to build a kosher mikveh, is called hashakah. This in Hebrew translates to cause to kiss. Okay? If you have ever met an Israeli person who loves you very much, they might say to you, "Ten li neshika, give me a kiss." So that's where that's coming from. And now we're going to figure out what is kissing what in this model. Before I show you this diagram, I just want to point out that early mikvot were natural bodies of water like oceans, rivers, and lakes, or a pit in a cave that collected rainwater. Now, there are some serious issues with this that I'm sure you can imagine. For example, it's really hard to keep these types of water clean. It's cold outside occasionally, and the temperature. So halachic design of mikvaot has really evolved to address these pitfalls, pun intended. Okay, here we go. So we're gonna build or dig a hole into the ground, a pit. This is called our bor ha'otzar, our pit of collection. What are we collecting? Rainwater. We're collecting rainwater because we need mayim chayim, living water. So we've got the rain, we've got the pit, but of course we need a certain amount. We need 40 seah, 40 seah, which translates roughly to 200 gallons. 1 seah is about 5 gallons. Now, is this number arbitrary? No, of course not. The Talmud has a whole conversation about how we need a certain amount of water because we need a person to be able to get fully immersed. And 200 gallons is a fair bit of water, and we think that that's enough. Okay, great. So we've got this water, we're ready to go, right? Now, there's a problem. This is still outside, it's still hard to clean, it's still hard to control the temperature of this water. So, we're gonna do something. We are going to build an addition. And this is going to be our bor hatvila, our pit of immersion. And here, we can do a lot. We can add stairs, we can have a handrail, we can have an area here where we can have an aquatic lift for people who use wheelchairs. And we can have clean, warm, filtered tap water in this pool. And this is where people immerse. So that's very comfortable. But unfortunately, this is not ready for immersion because tap water is considered drawn water, mayim she'ovim. And actually, we need mayim chayim to have a kosher mikvah. So here's the design element. Here's the kissing part. We are going to build a connection here. And when a person is in the bor hatvila and they're about to immerse, the first thing they do is they open up this handle and the mayim chayim just has to touch this water, the Newton City tap water. And when it does, it changes the status of all of this water to mayim chayim, living water, okay? And now you're ready to go. You close it back up and you're ready to go, okay?
Thanks, Lisa. Before I continue, are there any questions on this mikveh design?
Yes. So
Great.
my question is, how much of a kiss is required to purify the artificial?
The Newton City Center tap water.
Yes.
How much mayim chayim do we need?
Right.
Great question. It is not a number. It really is just the moment the waters touch. And actually, in the mikveh, mayim chayim, you can feel it happen. It is the coolest thing because the water in the mikveh, as Lisa said, is warm. It's about 98 degrees, which is about the temperature of a human body. And the reason why it's that temperature is for a few reasons. One, it's comfortable. So you're not going to get overheated. You're also not going to be cold. You won't have that moment of, it's cold. And people who are pregnant shouldn't have their body temperatures elevated. People who are pregnant come and immerse at mayim chayim. And that way they can stay in the water for a longer period of time. But when you turn the handle, and we'll see in a moment what that looks like, the water outside is cold. And so the moment the waters touch and mingle, the hashakah moment, when the waters kiss, is physically felt. So it's really just that moment. And then you turn the handle so you don't use up all the mayim chayim and we don't have a flood. So it's not like, oh, I have to like make sure it's enough. It really is the moment the waters touch, it's considered as if all of the water has the status of mayim chayim. It's a rabbinic concept. Great question. Kent?
What happens when there's a drought and you don't get rain for months on end?
A fantastic question. So mayim chayim was built in 2004. And I think we finished construction in April, but we didn't have an immersion till June because we needed it to rain. We had a beautiful immersion space, but no way to make it a kosher immersion space because we needed the mayim chayim. And actually, one of the things that I think is is really special about working in a mikveh is every time it rains, I think about the borot, the collection pits filling up. So we always have extra water. Ellen, yes, please go ahead.
Ellen, you need to unmute and we would love to hear your question.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Can
go
you
ahead.
put in the chat the Hebrew for shall be?
Yes, absolutely. Happy to. There you go. Thanks, Ellen. Any other questions?
Yes, one more.
Great.
How do you keep the Mayim Chaim clean? Are there any community standards? Are you regulated?
So the Mayim Chaim and the water inside the mikveh, we keep clean in different ways. So the water inside the Bor HaOtzar, which is the pit of collection, we're going to see in a moment where it lives. And then there's the water of the Bor HaTfilah, the pit of immersion, which is inside. Ellen, do you have a clarifying question?
Oh, Ellen, will you just unmute
You
again?
need to unmute, Ellen.
Could you put the Hebrew letters for shall be?
Rachel, do you mind doing that? Well, thank you so much. Thanks for asking, Ellen. So the water's inside the Bor HaTfilah, where a person physically immerses. That water is chemically treated like a pool. We actually have a pool guy who specializes in mikvaot now because of us. And so every night after the immersions, the mikveh guide pours in the chemicals for that evening to clean the pool. They're also filtered every single day, twice a day.
I was asking specifically about the outside, the collection water.
Yes.
Now, it may be that because the inside is kept clean and filtered, it's unnecessary. But knowing Newton and the amount of regulation that Newton likes, I'm wondering whether the health department worries about the outside waters.
No, because no one is full body immersing in them. And because there's enough treatment of the water of the Newton City Center tap water as it is, plus what we're doing to it and the filters and whatever, that it's negligible. It's a great question. All right, let's now actually see these things. So we know how the mikveh is built, we know where the water is stored, but let's put some visuals to that. So I'm actually going to take us into Mayim Chaim, if that's okay with everyone. And I'm going to take us on a little tour. This is a short tour of our space at Mayim Chaim. This is all pre-COVID, so we're not having people prepare at Mayim Chaim, unfortunately. That's something that happens at home, but we still have people immersing. We still have people being able to come and mark transition. So I'm going to play a video for us about Mayim Chaim, and I'm inviting you to tell me afterwards where we keep the Mayim Chaim, where the Mayim Chaim lives. Thanks for visiting Mayim Chaim. Before we move to our next part, does anyone have any questions, or did anyone catch where the Mayim Chaim is stored?
I don't know where it's stored, but I do know where the water is collected from.
Ah, okay. So
There was that little, not a valley, but like a little gutter.
Like a moat is what I like to call it.
Yeah, along the side of the building.
Amazing. Yes. So there are 2 borot, 2 collection pits, one on each side of the building, because there are 2 mikvaot, one on each side of the building. So right up against the wall, on the other side of the wall, is the mikveh where people are immersing. In between that wall, there is a PVC pipe that connects them that you'll see in a moment. I'm going to show us in a moment, that takes the living water, the Mayim Chaim, and brings it into the mikveh. And that's actually a 6-foot deep collection pit. That's where the water is stored. It looks very shallow, but that's because of safety reasons. So we have, as we said in the video, lots of ages come and visit Mayim Chaim. That includes children. And we want to make sure that if people are running and playing in the area, they're not going to fall into 6 feet of water accidentally. So the water is only actually, it's less than a foot. It's a couple of inches of water. And then underneath is stored lots and lots of Mayim Chaim. And it also helps us in case of drought. Any other questions before I move to how an immersion works? Sandra? I'm gonna unmute you. I can't unmute you, never mind. I think you have to unmute, Sandra. Thank you.
How many people use the mikveh?
Ah, great question. Well, we've had over 20,000 immersions. I don't know our most updated numbers, but as of 2019 to 2020, over 20,000 people. So,
per year?
Collectively, since we opened 20 years ago. So it's about 10,000. Nope, my math is wrong. It's about 1,000 people a year. I didn't study math. I went to a middle school. Anyway.
Yeah, you should learn a little math.
Thank you, Sandra. Noted.
Is that people, or I mean, some people must come like once a week.
So the number 20,000 includes anyone who's immersed, but we have people who come once a week as well, and they are included in that number. So, oh wait, no, that's not true. We've had 20,000 individual immersions. That's not including people who come for repeat reasons.
Okay.
Yes. So somebody who comes before Shabbat every week, which we had pre-pandemic, is not included more than once in the 20,000. All right. So we've talked about how a mikveh is built. Thank you very much. We've talked about our source of mikveh. But now what I'd like to do with all of you is go into how an immersion actually works, because we've asked a bunch of questions about, well, is someone in the room with me? Who might use it? How might they use this? So let's actually have a little model immersion where no one is going to take their clothes off and no one is going in the water. Instead, I'm going to walk us through what an immersion experience might be like at Mayim Chaim. So the very first thing after you've booked your appointment at Mayim Chaim, you might book online, you might call and book it, but you will be greeted by a mikveh guide of the same gender as you, who will offer you pre-COVID tea, snacks, or water, and a tour. So why is it important that the mikveh guide is of the same gender as you? It's because we want everyone who comes to feel welcomed. And we have many different types of gender identities come and visit Mayim Chaim. Some people are trans, some people are non-binary, some people are men. So to answer our question from earlier, how do men use the mikveh? Actually, all types of Jews use the mikveh at Mayim Chaim, not just women. So you've been given your tour because you've never been to Mayim Chaim before, and you're shown to your preparation room. Now, your preparation room is private. Once the mikveh guide closes the door behind them, you are alone in your preparation room. And pre-COVID, you would do all of your preparing for the mikveh in this room. So remember, as I said earlier, mikveh is a full body ritual immersion. And we go in naked. So we remove anything that might come between us and the water. And in Hebrew, a barrier between us and the water is called a chatzitza. So my earrings might be considered a barrier, my contacts, the flower in my hair, my shirt, and I would remove all of these things. Each of our prep rooms has everything you need, but we also have prep rooms specifically designed for families with children. As you saw in the video, there's the baby towels, and we have a little baby bathtub, baby shampoo, and we have a preparation room designed for people with different mobility needs. So if somebody is in a wheelchair or a walker, we have a preparation room designed specifically for that. And as Lisa said in her video, we have an aquatic lift that can be lowered into the water so someone who has limited mobility can still immerse. Now, there's lots of ways to take off things that might come between us and the water, but we also have 7 kavanot, 7 intentions. And these intentions are in every single preparation room. I did not bring all of them with me today, but I will be sending all of them to you after the program. And each of these intentions guide a step in the process of getting ready to go into the mikveh. I know this is kind of small and I apologize for that, but if somebody wants to unmute and read number 1, I would very much appreciate it.
I can read it in English.
Thanks so much, Mallory, please.
Starting with immersion in the mikveh. Is that where I should start?
Take
a minute.
Take a minute, yeah.
Take a minute and think about the transition mikveh will help you mark today. Immersion in the mikveh represents a spiritual transformation from one state to another. In traditional language, your change is from ritually unready tamei,
great.
Tamei, to ritually ready, tahor. Prepare yourself by writing in a journal, saying a personal prayer, or reading something of meaning to you. Breathe deeply, sigh audibly.
Thank you, Mallory. And in Hebrew, the first kavanah is hineni. Here I am. It's being present. It's landing in your time and your space. So there are 6 more that guide us through different ways to take things off, to go to the bathroom, to shower, to scrub our hands, all of those things. And ultimately what happens is by the end of your preparation, you are wrapped in a very large sheet and ready to immerse. Now, anything that's been on your body for 30 days or more is not considered a chatzitza, a barrier between you and the water. Ellen, did I just see a hand or was that a head scratch? None of the above. Okay. So anything like a tattoo is not considered a barrier between you and the water. Piercings you never take out. A necklace you have not taken off for 30 days or more. And that includes going to sleep. You sleep in it, you shower in it. That's then considered, according to Jewish traditional law, according to halacha, part of your body. Glasses, though, because we don't sleep in them, are not considered part of our body. So you're wrapped in your really big sheet and you're ready to immerse. Before your mikveh guide left you alone in your preparation room to start getting ready, they asked you, do you want a witness? And you always have the choice to say yes or no, except for a conversion, because we don't do conversions. Rabbis or clergy come to Maim Chaim to use this space for conversions. So that's up to the clergy. But for an individual immersion, let's say you're coming to honor your adult bar or bat mitzvah, you have the choice if you want the guide to witness you. So let's say you decided you wanted the guide to witness you. So what will happen is you're wrapped in your sheet, you'll pick up a phone, a landline that's in each preparation room. And on that phone, it says in very large letters, dial 200. And you will follow the directions, and on the other end will be a mikveh guide, because it goes straight to the front desk. And you'll tell the mikveh guide, I'm ready to immerse. And the mikveh guide will either say, hold on, someone's in the mikveh, or they'll say, no one's in the mikveh, go right in. And right there, we've prevented any need for anyone to walk in on another person, and everybody's privacy is protected. So you haven't left your preparation room yet to check. Nobody's been walked in on. This is our system that has worked beautifully to make sure that everybody's privacy is sacred at Mayim Chaim. So the mikveh guide will go through a different entrance. There's these little pocket doors, and they'll step through them, close them behind them, knock on your door, and you'll walk through. So the person in the image in front of us is wrapped in the sheet. It's very, very large because body comes in all shapes and sizes. And here's what happens next. The mikveh guide is in the room with you. And I'm going to demonstrate on my handy little napkin here. So let's imagine for a moment, this is a very large sheet and you are wrapped in this. So your modesty is protected, your privacy is protected, but I, as the mikveh guide, will be witnessing. So here's what happens. I can ask you one of two things. Number one, I can ask, can I take the sheet off of your back? I'm not just going to do it because I want to ask for your consent. I want your permission. Or I might ask, can I check your back for hairs? For some people who immerse at Mayim Chaim, if you're brushing your hair and a hair gets on your back that's not connected to your head, that might be considered, to some people who come to immerse, a barrier between them and the water, and they want those hairs to be taken off their back that they can't see or reach. So I might say that. If the answer is yes to either one of them, here's what happens. I'm going to show you with my little napkin. Pretend this is a very large white sheet. So you said yes, so I can take it off, so I can take the sheet from you, and here's what I do. Can everyone see? Because I can't, because my eyes are covered. So what's happened is now my eyes are covered and you're walking into the water. And the whole time that's happening, I'm standing like this. So I can't see anything, but I can hear you. So what I do is I remind you to change the status of the water. And remember, the whole time that's happening, I'm like this. So as our handy guide over here shows, the yellow arrow points to the bor ha'otzar, the pit of collection. The rainwater goes directly in there. And then the yellow arrow pointing in the mikveh is pointing at the handle that you turn to bring in the Mayim Chaim. And it's very quick. So all of that has happened in the space of maybe 15 to 30 seconds. That's it. So I'm standing like this the whole time. You might say, I'm ready, or you might say nothing. And I just hear a very big splash or just the ripple of water of somebody going under. And here's what happens when I hear that splash. Everybody ready? Rachel, can I task you to just yell splash really loudly?
Splash.
Okay, you do it one more time. I wasn't ready.
Splash.
Everyone catch that? Let's do it one more time.
Splash.
So thank you, Rachel. I appreciate the splash. So it's just a very quick lower. And in that peek over, I'm making sure your whole body's under the water. So it's not a, let me look at you. It's a, oh, your whole body was under the water. Kasher. That was a kosher immersion. Perfect. Or I might say, really great job, Rachel, but your hands were waving above the water. Let's try that again with your whole body under the water. And all I'm seeing is the top of your head. And that is, again, I'll be standing like this after that. You might immerse 3 times because it says the word mikveh 3 times in the Bible. And it also shows that you're doing something with intention. Doing something 3 times demonstrates an intention to do the action. Then still standing like this, I might say to you, do you want some time alone in the water? And if you say yes, I hang up your sheet and I leave through your private door. So I'm not opening the doors of the mikveh. And then I leave you alone and you have time alone in the water. Or you might say, actually, I'm done. And so I'm holding the sheet, I'm holding it like this. You come up out of the water and you back into it and I wrap it around your shoulders and now you're covered. And then you go out into your private preparation room and I'll leave through the doors of the mikveh because no one's in the water now. So what might I say in the mikveh? Well, there's some blessings. There's a traditional blessing that includes language of commandedness. And there's an alternative blessing, which doesn't include language of commandedness. And all of these blessings are right by the water and they're laminated. So you can bring them into the water with you and you don't need to worry about memorizing anything. And you might say the Shachianu. You might be recognizing this is a big moment and you want to honor that. This might be your first time immersing in 30 days, in 30 years, maybe your whole life. So someone might also say the Shachianu, but we also have special immersion ceremonies. And these immersion ceremonies are also laminated, so they can also be brought into the mikveh. And I brought for you today becoming a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah as an adult. And the way these ceremonies work, I didn't bring the whole thing, is there's an intention to be read before immersing. And then there are 3 separate things to say for each immersion. Can I somebody unmute, please, and read the kavanah, the intention?
Hineni, here I am. I'm ready to be counted as a knowledgeable Jew, one who can create a full Jewish life for myself and be an example for others. This immersion is an act of transition for me. I move from student to learner, to teacher, and to a new state of responsibility and privilege in the Jewish community. May I be filled with renewed energy and direction to continue on my Jewish path. May God grant me strength, courage, and peace. Amen.
Thank you. So this is just the beginning. And I'm happy to send along the ceremony if you prefer, so you can see it as well. But this is something you can bring into the water with you and hold and read and use as you immerse. And there's also lots of other immersion ceremonies that we have, and I brought a few of them, honoring the process of coming out, following the end of a relationship, and in gratitude. All of these marking moments of life cycle transition. So we're now going to talk about all the different reasons why people might immerse, but they fall into 3 categories. The 3 categories are in front of us: commanded, customary, minhag being the Hebrew word for customary, and new. Now, when I say commanded, that gets a little tricky because Mayim Chayim is a community mikveh, a mikveh for all Jews. And I don't know about you, but all Jews that I know do not do Judaism the same way. So if that's true, something that can be commanded for one person is not necessarily commanded for another. And we honor and respect all of the reasons that somebody might come to Mayim Chayim. So for people who are coming because they believe that their immersion is commanded, it's a mitzvah, these are the 3 reasons that might be considered commanded. Number 1, conversion, becoming a Jew. I want to flag for a moment though, not every rabbi in the Reform and Reconstructionist movements require immersion in a mikveh to become Jewish. Most do, but some do not. So I just want to complicate it even more by saying that. Nidah. Nidah, as someone mentioned earlier, is when one or both partners in an intimate physical relationship with each other have a menstrual cycle. During the menstrual cycle of one of the partners, traditionally, they don't engage in physical intimacy with each other. After the menstrual cycle ends, one or both of the partners will go and immerse in a mikveh to mark that end of the cycle. I was menstruating, now I'm not. And a bride in traditional Orthodox spaces, the first time she immerses in a mikveh is when she's about to get married. So that's it. That's the whole list of commanded reasons. It's really short. Questions about those before we move to customary? And you can feel free to unmute. Great. So that's it. Short list. Lots of people come for these reasons, lots and lots and lots, but we also have customary reasons. When I say customary, I'm talking about reasons that people might have been doing for hundreds or even thousands of years. They're just not written down in the Torah. Romney and Mallory, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I had a quick question.
Yeah.
It's general, but does this mikveh, is it used by Orthodox Jews as well, or is it?
Great question. Really, really great question. So we are a mikveh that is under kosher supervision. The borot, the pits, are under Orthodox, kosher, rabbinic supervision. However, there are many, many, many mikvahot, plural of mikveh, in the Boston area that are Orthodox. So some Orthodox people use Maim Chaim's mikveh, but Orthodox conversions do not typically take place at Maim Chaim, although they are absolutely welcome. Did that answer your question, or is there more that I can provide?
Yeah, I think so. So a Orthodox person would be okay with a man using the mikveh?
I can't speak for every Orthodox person or any Orthodox people, actually, but the people who come to Maim Chaim know a variety of genders use the mikveh.
Okay.
Great question. Yes, that is known. So customary reasons.
Wait, Amalia, hold on.
Oh, yes.
Ellen Soro, did you have a hand? Can you, if you unmute Ellen, we would love to hear your question.
Okay. I didn't realize that there sounds like men use a mikveh.
Yes.
I had never heard of that.
Yes.
Is it a similar ritual? For instance, would a man use the mikveh before he marries?
You're bringing us exactly to where I wanted to go, Ellen. Thank you. So yes, short answer, yes. Longer answer, that falls under customary reasons. So I'll give an example. It's personal. I immersed before my wedding to my husband, and my husband immersed as well, but we didn't immerse in the same places because he feels very drawn to natural bodies of water. So he immersed in the ocean, and I immersed at Maim Chaim. But if he was also in Connecticut, but if he had been in Boston, he would have gone to Maim Chaim. So we have lots of couples that come before their wedding, both men and women and women and women and men and non-binary as well, who come as a couple to immerse separately at Maim Chaim before their wedding.
Is there any difference accorded to people who are changing sex?
Interesting.
I have a friend who is now a woman, but previously was someone's father.
So we do
still is the father. It's very complicated.
So we have everyone who comes is treated with the full dignity that each person requires. And we have a ceremony specifically for a gender transition milestone.
That's fantastic. That's so wonderful.
Yes, and people have used it, and we developed it because there was a need.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a whole list of ceremonies that fall under a variety of continuing one's coming out journey, things like that.
Yes, yes.
So they're all welcome. Everyone is welcome at the mikveh.
What about different races?
Also welcome as well. And we've tried very hard to have a cohort of Jews of color as mikveh guides, because somebody might really want somebody who can understand why they're at the mikveh. We've had people who are coming from healing for anti-Semitism and healing for racism.
And there are synagogues that are Black. There still are. You can't see the photograph I have up there, but it was a synagogue in Manhattan, right near where I lived. And yeah, the photograph is High Holidays with someone Black who's leading it. And
yes, Jews of color have been in the community since Judaism.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Ellen, for bringing that up. Absolutely. So we have space and we're continuously working on creating a mikveh that's as inclusive and engaging and welcoming as possible. Thank you, Ellen, for bringing that up. And so in the spirit of what Ellen brought up, this customary category is grooms have been immersing for hundreds of years. It's just not written in the Bible. The same way for people immersing before Shabbat. Somebody said in the chat that they had seen lots of Hasidim immersing before Shabbat. That's a transition, going from Chol, weekday, to Kodesh, holy, sacred, set apart. So we had a guest who would come every single week and she would immerse before Shabbat as part of her pre-Shabbat practice. And the high holidays, Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, these moments of big transition in the Jewish calendar, when we're thinking about the year and we're about to start a new one, these are moments that we recognize transition and people immerse. The 9th month of pregnancy, about to give birth, that's a pretty darn big immersion. That's a very large transition. And a sofer or a soferet, that's the masculine and feminine in Hebrew of a scribe, somebody who writes a Torah scroll, which can take up to a year. Traditionally, people who write the name of God in a Torah scroll will immerse before doing so. So also some sofrim or sofrot, that's the plural, masculine and feminine of scribe in Hebrew. Some scribes have the custom of immersing before starting to write a Sefer Torah, a Torah scroll. So these are lots of customary reasons. And then we have my personal favorite, new reasons that have come about in the past 20 years, and they're still being added. So b'nai mitzvahs, both as a 12 or 13-year-old or as an adult, for divorce, that is a very big life transition. We have an immersion ceremony upon finalizing a divorce. For birthdays, to celebrate turning another year, we have immersion ceremonies from 30 to 70. And I want to create one for an 80th birthday. For mourning, upon completing a period of mourning, for a new job, going off to college, finishing college, starting kindergarten. We have a family that pre-pandemic would come and immerse the mom and the 2 daughters for Rosh Chodesh, the new month, each month as their way of marking time together. And we had a child immerse in honor of adding a digit to his age, which wouldn't happen again until he was 100. And that falls under new reasons. These were all reasons that have only happened because people decided it was meaningful to them. So there's lots more, and I encourage you to unmute or add in the chat any other reason that you think someone might come to the mikveh. And thinking about these life transitions. Lori, did I see a hand?
Yeah, I'm acquainted with people who have gone to the mikveh after finishing chemotherapy or following surgery for cancer.
Yes. Yes, we have a whole set of immersion ceremonies around that as well. Absolutely. It's a very big transition. Thank you. Anyone else have one that they think might be helpful in a life transition moment? Mine?
You mentioned one's own birthday, but what about children? When children come, how does that work?
Meaning, could you say a little bit more? Because I'm not totally sure.
Birth, is there a mikveh after the birth? And when are children introduced to this practice?
Absolutely, children are introduced to this practice. Our most popular program is Introduction to Mikveh for 4th graders, 4th through 6th. Yes, this is something that belongs to all of us. So if a child is born to a Jewish parent, they do not require immersion in the mikveh. If a child is being confirmed as a Jew or converted, then they would go to the mikveh. And then in that case, a parent would go into the water with them wearing a bathing suit and hold the child for that immersion. But we also have had children use the mikveh for a variety of reasons. Some of them have come for healing. Some of them have come just to try it. That's a reason too, because you want to try it and it's a new experience. So why not? In the same way that I might try a prayer, I might try a ritual object. This is a ritual experience that I might want to try. So did I answer your question, Mayim, or is there anything else I can add?
Fine.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anyone else? Romney and Mallory, thank you so much. I'm really glad to be here with you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So in our last few moments together, I'm going to ask you to share by unmuting or putting in the chat something you learned or something that surprised you. Rachel, can you write those two words into the chat, learned and surprised? And I'm going to stop sharing so I can see all of your faces. You can also put a question or ask a question you may still have. Helen, please.
Yeah, I guess for me, I had always thought of mikvahs as a very Orthodox tradition. So I was pleased to learn that it didn't have to be. And also the steps and the possibility of someone being there or not being there to witness. I appreciated learning that because I didn't understand if nobody witnessed, did it happen? So thank you anyway.
You're so welcome, Helen. And I think that if nobody witnessed, did it happen? For some people, no. And for some people, yes.
Right.
And Mayim Chaim, you get that choice.
Yeah.
Totally. Totally. Amazing. All the new reasons for going to the mikveh. Absolutely. Yom Kippur. Wonderful.
I was astonished by the breadth of welcome. And I say thank you to all of you who have worked on that.
Is anyone ever refused at Mayim Haim?
I want to respond to that question, Lord, but first I want to say thank you, Ellen, for seeing that and acknowledging that and appreciating it. It really means a lot. Thank you. So in answer to your question, Lori, every year we have a clergy committee who we bring some really big questions to. And one of the boundaries that Mayim Chaim has is that we have this ritual immersion for Jews and those becoming Jewish. But there are lots of people who are not Jewish who are involved in the Jewish community. So we've created a hand washing ceremony for any faith tradition or no faith tradition that can be done with either water from the Mayim Chaim mikveh, water from a source that's really meaningful, as an option for people who want to engage in this ritual and who are other than Jewish. And we also offer all of our resources. So if somebody, let's say there's a mom and a daughter, and the daughter is becoming bat mitzvah and the mother is not Jewishly identified, we can offer our immersion ceremonies or help in crafting a ritual immersion somewhere in a natural source of water as well. But that's something that our clergy have decided is a boundary for our community. But we also don't ask, are you Jewish? So we've had people reach out and say, I'm Christian and I'm really excited about this ritual, in which case we will then try and connect them with someone in their faith tradition so they can have access to water rituals in their faith tradition.
Is there anything you definitely don't let in? I mean, I'm so amazed because it's just, I don't know. I have no other way to say it.
Yeah. One of our values is openness, p'tichut, openness. And we try very hard to live that. And sometimes that can be challenging when there's a mother who, or a parent who is other than Jewish and wants to immerse. That can be challenging. And it is also part of our boundaries of how we work as an organization and something that our clergy committee decides. So we're not making that decision. We have a clergy committee of rabbis from a variety of denominations of Judaism. So they decide these choices together, these like really big things that we want to make sure lots of other people who are wiser than us are thinking about. But yes, we try very hard to be inclusive.
A friend of mine who doesn't actually think of herself as Jewish, though she has some family that is Jewish, just had her husband exit very unpleasantly. And I wonder if she could come, she and maybe with her daughters, to be cleansed of their hurt and anger.
I think that what you're bringing up, Ellen, the sorrow and the loss and the suddenness of it, which is just tragic, and I'm so sorry for your friend. We have immersion ceremonies that I'm happy to share as well. I'm happy to send them to Rachel or to Jim that you can also share with her if she's not able to come. Some people don't.
Oh, I think she would be able, and she might be interested, but I didn't want to just suggest it to her without asking.
If she identifies as a Jewish person, she is welcome.
She doesn't. She doesn't. She's sort of mixed, and I don't think she. The father is Jewish, but I don't know that she has an identity in religion. She's very
this is something that I think that I'm happy to talk about afterwards.
Yes,
absolutely a bigger.
That would be very helpful, and I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. We've reached the end of our time together, so I want to make sure that we specifically answer the questions we asked. Are oceans, rivers, lakes kosher mikvahs? Yes. How might people use mikvah throughout their life? We just talked all about that, all the different ways, and counting. Is mikvah for men? Yes, mikvah is for all gender identities. Would a Kori qualify as a mikvah? I don't know. I want to find out. Such a great question. I'm going to find out. And are you alone? We talked about that as well. It's up to you. Up to you. Mayim, yeah.
I thought it was curious that you mentioned if someone brings their child that the mother or whoever would wear a bathing suit.
Well, because there's usually a clergy person in the room,
Oh.
and we want to protect, like the mother or the father, the parent is not immersing they're just present as a safety for their child. So they're going to wear something for their own modesty. And the child will be naked, and usually they're an infant or very, very young. And there's been conversation with them if they're older. And depending on how old they are, a parent is not in the water with them. That's great. Thank you, Jim and Rachel, for bringing me in. And I'll be sending you a survey and some follow-up information, and I'm available if people have any questions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Much, Amalia. It was so just heartwarming and fun and super interesting to welcome you into this space with these communities. So thank you for sharing your enthusiasm and your Torah and your wisdom and your openness. And I love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Shabbat shalom.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Shabbat shalom.